There are some moments in life that don't scream at you. They whisper, just loud enough for something inside to stir. That Saturday morning was one of them. I remember it clearly, almost too clearly. The sunlight came in soft through the blinds, spilling across the hardwood floor in lines. The coffee pot gurgled like usual. I had just poured a mug and was halfway through a crossword puzzle when the front door creaked open. Jenna stepped in like someone walking onto a movie set, postured, breezy, too composed for the time of day. She was wearing a navy blue dress I didn't recognize. It looked like it had been nice once. High neckline, slightly flared at the bottom, but now it was wrinkled in ways that didn't match a day at a seminar. Her hair was damp, not in that towel-dried, just showered kind of way, but like she'd rinsed it quickly and let it air dry. It clung slightly to her neck, where a fresh scratch ran down the left side, thin but vivid against her skin. I frowned. "You okay?" She touched the scratch absent-mindedly, like she'd forgotten it was even there. "Oh yeah, it's nothing. Just tripped outside the wellness center. There was some weird gravel near the steps. You know me, always a klutz." She gave me a playful smile and walked past into the kitchen, kicking off her flats as she went. I didn't respond right away. Something felt off. I just didn't know what. Then, as she set her bag on the counter, something slipped out, light as a feather, and drifted to the floor. "Can you grab that?" she called without turning, already opening the fridge. "Think it's just a receipt or something." I bent down and picked it up. Crisp paper, freshly printed. My eyes scanned it quickly. Green Hill Pines Golf Club. Date, Friday. Time, 8:43 p.m. 2 guests, lounge and bar. Total, $126.50. I blinked. Green Hill Pines? That wasn't where her wellness seminar was supposed to be. That was a high-end resort nestled in the hills 2 towns over. I'd only been there once, for a work function that involved overpriced steak and uncomfortable shoes. I knew their calendar pretty well because I checked it months ago while planning a surprise weekend getaway for her birthday. They didn't host seminars. They didn't host anything wellness-related, unless you counted martinis as therapy. I stood there, holding the receipt between my fingers like it might answer the question forming in my head. When she turned back to me with a yogurt and spoon in hand, her eyes went directly to the paper. "Oh," she said with a light laugh, walking toward me. "Yeah, that. Funny story, so the seminar ended up getting moved last minute. One of the women in the group knows a guy who has access to Green Hill Pines. Apparently, their lounge was open and quiet, so we just hung out there after the mindfulness session. It was super chill. Nothing fancy." She took the receipt from my hand, looked at it, and tossed it into the trash like it didn't matter. Her tone was breezy, effortless. But that was the thing, too effortless. Like she'd written the explanation ahead of time and rehearsed it in the car mirror. "Didn't know they were open to the public," I said, watching her closely. "They're not usually," she replied quickly, too quickly. "But it's a private connection, you know? These women know people, right?" I watched her stir her yogurt. Every motion she made was smooth, purposeful. Her eye makeup was immaculate. No creases, no signs of a long day. Just precise wings and even foundation. Her lipstick wasn't smudged, despite her claim that she'd been out with a group doing guided meditation. Her hair, though damp, didn't have the dry frizz she normally got after a day in the sun. It smelled faintly of a shampoo I didn't recognize, more floral than her usual vanilla lavender. Something wasn't lining up. A lot of somethings. "So, how was it?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "The seminar?" "Oh, it was really good," she said, spoon halfway to her mouth. "We did this exercise where we wrote letters to our future selves. Really grounding stuff. Honestly, I think you'd enjoy it if you ever gave mindfulness a chance." "Maybe," I said, but my mind wasn't on mindfulness. It was on the timestamp, 8:43 p.m., and how late she had gotten home. She had come in close to midnight, saying the seminar had run long. That didn't make much sense for a morning-to-evening wellness event. When I asked if she had eaten, she claimed she was too tired and just wanted to shower and go to bed. She didn't even look at her phone when it buzzed 3 times in a row while she brushed her teeth. Now I wondered if that was even her phone buzzing, or someone else's call she didn't want to answer in front of me. I glanced at her again as she stood by the sink, scrolling idly through her messages. The screen was angled away, the habit she'd only picked up in the last few months. I couldn't see what she was reading, but she smiled faintly, then tucked the phone into her back pocket. "Got any plans today?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not really. I might do some laundry, maybe catch up on that podcast you recommended." "I need a low-key day." I nodded. "You're sure you're okay from that fall?" She touched the scratch again. "Yeah. Doesn't even hurt." Her voice was soft, controlled, polished in a way that didn't belong in our casual Saturday kitchen. That was the part that hit me hardest, honestly, not the scratch, not the receipt, not even the dress. It was the performance of it all. Her tone was too rehearsed. The cadence of her words was too perfect, like she'd been waiting to deliver them in just the right order. And I hated myself for it, but I started cataloging things in my head. The dress. Where had it come from? It wasn't new, but I'd never seen it. The receipt. 2 guests. Over $100. That's not tea and guided breathing. The makeup. No creases, no wear. Like it had just been done. The story. Too clean. Too ready. I said nothing. I didn't want to accuse her. Not yet. Not without knowing more. But something in my chest had shifted. A slow, sinking feeling that started behind my ribs and worked its way down like an anchor. She smiled again, kissed my cheek, and said she was going upstairs to rest. I stood there alone, the silence of the kitchen pressing in around me. Later, I opened my phone and pulled up the Green Hill Pines website. I went straight to their events calendar. Just like I remembered, golf tournaments, wine tastings, a private wedding reception. No wellness seminar. No mindfulness retreat. Just exclusivity and fine dining. I closed the site. There was nothing conclusive yet. No photos. No texts. No confession. But my instincts weren't guessing anymore. They were screaming. And Jenna? Jenna was too perfect that morning. Too prepared. Too polished. Too obvious to ignore. After Jenna went upstairs that morning, I sat on the couch staring at the corner of the living room where the sunlight used to feel warmer. It didn't look any different, same cushions, same throw blanket, same little succulent in the windowsill, but everything felt colder. Distant. My mug of coffee had gone cold, untouched since she walked in. The receipt still played in my head on a loop, Green Hill Pines. 2 guests. Over $100. A place that didn't hold seminars and never had. The scratch, the dress, the perfectly composed story. It was all too timed. Staged. I didn't want to be the guy who jumps to conclusions, who spirals based on a gut feeling. But that morning opened a vault in my mind. A place where all the things I had filed under probably nothing began dragging themselves back into the light. And suddenly, everything Jenna had been doing over the last few months started clicking into place. The new gym, for starters. She joined it 3 months ago, raving about their women-only yoga classes and infrared sauna. At first, I was glad. She'd been saying she wanted to focus more on her health, and I supported that. I remember telling her, "Good for you," when she came home with a new gym bag and cute water bottle. But here's the thing, I never saw her sweat. She'd leave the house in matching workout sets, hair in a ponytail, face clean and fresh, but come home hours later still looking the same. Not flushed. Not tired. Sometimes even more made up than when she left. I chalked it up to good genetics, or maybe that she was just using the gym as a social thing. Now, I wasn't so sure. And the phone. It used to live openly on our kitchen counter or the nightstand. No password. No hiding. But about 6 weeks ago, she started locking it, first with a casual, "Work's been crazy, can't risk clients seeing sensitive stuff." Reasonable, I thought. She works in real estate. Confidentiality matters. But then the behavior started to change. She'd take her phone to the bathroom. Keep it face down everywhere. Even sleep with it under her pillow once or twice. And I'd notice her swipe away notifications with the same smooth, blank expression every time I entered the room. And still, I let it slide. I didn't want to seem paranoid. Didn't want to be that kind of husband. But now? Now it screamed. Then there were her clothes. Jenna always had good taste, but it shifted. Less cozy, more calculated. More heels. More silk. New lingerie that appeared without explanation and never appeared again. Once I asked if she got something new for date night, and she brushed it off with, "Oh, this old thing? Had it forever." But she hadn't. The tags were still in the bathroom trash 2 days before. At the time, I didn't press. I remember smiling, telling myself not to be jealous. I figured maybe she just wanted to feel good about herself. Women should. I even complimented her. "You look incredible lately." I'd said one night when she came down in a slinky dress for what she claimed was a girl's dinner. She smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. And there was how she started talking to me. I don't mean arguments or yelling, we didn't really fight. It was the opposite. She got quieter, more formal. Her words felt rehearsed, her tone just a bit too polite. Like a barista wishing you a good day while already turning to the next order. Once, I caught her saying thank you when I brought her coffee. Not thanks, babe, or you're sweet. Just thank you, like I was her Uber driver. Sounds small, but it adds up. When your partner starts speaking to you like they're talking to a coworker they don't like very much, it matters. She also stopped making eye contact when we talked. Little things, like checking her phone mid-sentence or fiddling with her sleeve when I asked how her day was, and she stopped asking me about my day altogether. I didn't realize it until that moment on the couch, staring blankly at the turned-off TV, how long it had been since she looked me in the eyes and asked how work was going. It was like I'd become background noise to her. There were other signs, random ones, like how she suddenly got into podcasts about manifesting freedom and reclaiming independence. She started using words like space and clarity in conversations that didn't need either. I remember a night last month when I asked her to help me pick out a gift for my niece's birthday, and she said, "I just don't have the bandwidth for that right now." Bandwidth. That was a word she got from someone else. Jenna was all heart. She never used tech speak. And then there was the business trip. A week in April. She had gone to a team-building retreat with 3 colleagues. She texted occasionally, mostly in short bursts. No FaceTimes. No photos. And I never really pressed her on the details afterward because, well, I trusted her. God, I trusted her. But when she came back, she was glowing. Different. Her hair was freshly trimmed. Something she hadn't mentioned planning. Her suitcase smelled like cologne I didn't recognize. I asked, jokingly, "Did you and the team have fun?" She grinned. "Yeah. It was eye-opening." That was all she said. Now I replayed that look on her face, that too satisfied smile, and wondered what had really opened her eyes that week. All of it, every single one of these moments, had lived in my brain like isolated snowflakes. But now they were forming an avalanche, and I had no idea how far down the hill I was about to fall. I don't know how long I sat on that couch. Maybe an hour, maybe 3. Eventually, I got up, walked to our bedroom, and opened her closet. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Something. Anything. I found the wrinkled navy dress from that morning laid over the arm of the chair in the corner. It still had a faint trace of perfume, sweet, unfamiliar. I touched the hem, feeling how fine the fabric was. Not something you'd wear to a meditation circle. Not without a plan. On her nightstand was a small clutch I hadn't seen before. Inside was a hotel keycard. No hotel name printed. Just plain white with a stripe. One of those generic cards you get at places that don't care if you remember the name, just the experience. I stood there for a long time, holding that key card like it weighed more than it should. Then I put it back, closed the clutch, and walked downstairs. I didn't say anything when Jenna came back down an hour later in leggings and a hoodie, looking more like herself. She curled up on the opposite side of the couch and scrolled through her phone while some HGTV show played in the background. I pretended to watch. She pretended to be present. But we were already in 2 different worlds. And I realized something. I hadn't lost her that morning. I'd been losing her one little piece at a time. The scariest part? I had handed her most of those pieces myself. Trusting, loving, believing. And now all I could do was watch her hold them and wonder who she'd given them to. I didn't sleep that night. Not from rage. Not even sadness, exactly. I just lay there staring at the ceiling fan spinning above our bed, trying to trace the exact moment I stopped being part of her world. Jenna breathed softly beside me, turned toward the window, one leg wrapped in the comforter. She always used to curl toward me, tangle her feet with mine like a silent goodnight. Now it was like there was a line drawn down the middle of the bed. She hadn't crossed it in weeks, maybe months. At some point, I got up and wandered downstairs, barefoot, the house creaking under me like it was in on the secret. I poured a glass of water I didn't drink. stared out the window into the dark. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. Not because I was above it, but because I never imagined I'd need to. I picked up my phone and opened the GPS tracking app we'd installed years ago after Jenna's car got stolen from the mall parking lot. It had stayed dormant, unused, buried under all the other apps we never deleted but never touched. I tapped her name. It asked for my password. I entered it, hands trembling, and waited. A map bloomed on the screen, our house a little blue dot in the center. Then I tapped history. My thumb hovered. This was the point of no return. The previous night, when she claimed to be at a seminar. The timestamp said 7:14 p.m. She had been at Green Hill Pines. Sure enough. But not just the golf club itself. She had parked at a private cottage connected to the estate. Technically still part of the resort but tucked further back along the lake. No events or classes were ever held there. It was listed on the website as the Maplewood Cabin. A luxury rental with lake views, a hot tub, and glass walls. Secluded. Expensive. Romantic. The location history said she stayed parked there for nearly 4 hours. She didn't leave until almost midnight. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, disbelief anchoring me in place. A seminar? With who? A yoga instructor in a silk robe? Was the scratch on her neck really from gravel, or something else? I clicked back through her GPS trail for the past 2 weeks. It repeated a few patterns. Coffee shops nowhere near her office. A gym she didn't belong to. And 3 visits to that same cabin in the past month. Always in the evenings. Always on the same days she claimed she had late meetings or wellness sessions. My fingers moved faster than my thoughts. I threw on jeans, grabbed my keys, and was out the door before I could stop myself. I told myself I wasn't going to do anything reckless. I just needed to see it. Just needed proof that what I feared wasn't some paranoid fantasy but something solid. Something real. Something I could stop doubting and start dealing with. The drive out to Green Hill Pines took about 40 minutes. I barely remember any of it. The roads blurred under the streetlights. The sky was still dark, but pale streaks of early dawn were starting to thread the horizon. I turned down the winding hill that led into the estate, passing closed gates and sleepy rental homes, until I reached the far edge of the property. That's where I saw it. Her car, parked neatly under the awning of the Maplewood Cabin. It was unmistakable, her silver CRV, license plate still dusty from our last trip upstate. Parked next to it like a twin in black was a sleek SUV. Tinted windows. New. Way too polished to be local. My heart pounded as I got out and moved slowly toward the side of the cabin. I stayed low, keeping behind the rows of hedges lining the porch. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want confrontation. I just needed to see her, and see who she was with. The place was mostly dark, save for the soft amber glow of the living room light leaking through the sheer curtains. I crept to the edge of the glass, heart rattling like a cage inside me. And there she was. Inside, Jenna stood by the fireplace wearing a pale silk robe I'd never seen before. Her hair was still damp, like she just stepped out of the hot tub. She was laughing. Beside her, lounging on the couch, was a man. He was tall, clean-cut, mid-30s maybe. I recognized his face from somewhere. Sharp jaw, styled hair, confident posture. Took me a second to place him, but then I remembered. He had been at a corporate fundraiser last year. One of the company's regional VPs. I had shaken his hand. Small talk over wine and charcuterie. Now he was leaning close to Jenna, grinning, glass in hand. She reached out and touched his arm, her fingers staying a moment too long. I didn't breathe. I didn't need to go in. Didn't need to hear a word. Didn't need her to explain it away with that polished tone. That single moment, her in that robe, him in that cabin, their laughter echoing through the glass like a private joke, told me more than anything she could say. I stood there for a beat longer. Then I turned and walked back to my car. My head was buzzing, but my body moved on instinct. I slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and backed out quietly into the road, gravel crunching beneath the tires like applause I didn't earn. Halfway home, I pulled over and sat there with the engine running. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared ahead and listened to the ticking of the dashboard clock. It was undeniable now. This wasn't emotional distance or a rough patch. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal. Quiet, deliberate, repeated, polished like everything Jenna had become in the past few months. She had been planning this, each lie, each detail, each perfect little excuse, like a storyline she never thought I'd follow. I went home just before sunrise, slipped back into bed. She was already there, pretending to sleep, the faint scent of floral shampoo trailing behind her. She didn't stir when I laid down, and I didn't touch her, not even to say goodbye to the version of her I thought I knew. When you see something that cracks your soul open, you expect the next part to come with some kind of thunder, like a fight, a scream, a confrontation that shakes the walls. But when I walked back into our house that morning, it was quiet, peaceful, almost. Jenna was already in the shower. Steam drifted under the bathroom door. Her silhouette moved behind the frosted glass. Just hours ago, I'd seen her in a different kind of glass, clearer, wider, colder. She hadn't seen me then, and she wouldn't see me now. I didn't say anything when she came downstairs wrapped in a towel, hair still damp. "Morning," she said, smiling faintly. I looked up from my laptop, nodded. "Hey!" She walked past me to the kitchen like nothing had changed. But everything had. For me, anyway. That entire day I ran on autopilot, nodding at emails, fielding calls, sipping lukewarm coffee. But beneath it, something new had taken root. Not rage, not heartbreak, resolve. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to dismantle every inch of the lie she built, with the same precision she used to create it. It started with the prenuptial agreement. We signed it 5 years ago when things were good and simple. It was her idea, actually. She said she didn't want money to get in the way if things ever went south. I remember laughing. "We're never going south," I said. Famous last words. But there was a clause, buried in the middle of that contract, in language her lawyer insisted on, sat a single line that suddenly meant everything. Any confirmed extramarital affair, substantiated through direct evidence, shall nullify any shared claim to property acquired post-marriage and transfer full asset control to the innocent spouse. At the time, I hadn't thought twice about it. Neither of us were planning to cheat. We were in love. It was just legal language. Now it was ammunition. I dug through our files and found the scanned copy of the document. Saved it to my desktop. Highlighted the clause. Took **TS of Jenna and the man at the cabin through the window. Enough to show their int *Macy. I didn't need to catch them in the act. The silk robe, the hand on the arm, the setting. It said more than any grainy nightcam footage ever could. But that wasn't the end of it. I searched her name online, just out of curiosity at first, and found something I hadn't expected. A video, public, on social media, tagged by someone I didn't know. It was from a party, a high-end club in Los Angeles. Strobe lights flickering, champagne glasses raised in the air. And right there, front and center, was Jenna, wearing a tight black dress, laughing, dancing, arms wrapped around the same man from the cabin. The caption read, "Power couple energy, fire, fire, fire." Someone in the comments asked, "Isn't she married?" Another replied, "Not for long if that guy's involved," face with tears of joy. I stared at the screen. My heart didn't even speed up. I just felt tired. Then I took a breath and posted. Right below that video, in the comment thread where people joked and gossiped, I uploaded an image, our prenuptial agreement with the clause highlighted in red. Clause 14. Infidelity results in full asset transfer to the innocent spouse. Dated. Signed. I didn't write anything else. No threats. No anger. Just the facts. The post blew up in a way I didn't expect. People **TED it. Shared it. The comment thread ballooned with responses like, "Oh, she fumbled the bag," loudly crying face. "This man lawyered up on a whole other level. She really thought no one would notice her." Jenna's profile went private within 3 hours. Someone must have told her. Maybe a friend. Maybe the guy himself. I don't know. I didn't ask. She came home that night late again. She walked in quietly, set her keys down, and acted like it was any other day. But I could tell she was rattled. Her eyes flicked to me on the couch. I was calm, quiet, watching a documentary with subtitles. "Hey," she said, voice low. "How was your day?" I muted the TV. "Fine." She hesitated like she wanted to ask something. Maybe she knew. Maybe someone had shown her the comment. Maybe her lawyer had called. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. We existed like shadows that night, brushing past each other in the hallway, moving around the same rooms but in separate orbits. I didn't need a fight. I needed facts. So the next morning I called a lawyer, referred by a friend, discreet, sharp. I laid everything out for him: GPS data, photos, social posts, the video, the prenup. He took notes, asked a few quiet questions, then looked up from his legal pad. "She's not going to see this coming," he said. "I'm counting on it." And still, I wasn't cruel. I wasn't vindictive. I just wanted out, and I wanted it clean. But Jenna wasn't done performing. 2 days later, I received a letter. Certified. Formal. A cease and desist from her attorney. "Your recent actions constitute public defamation, emotional abuse, and online harassment. Cease any further digital dissemination of private legal documents or character-assassinating commentary." I laughed when I read it. Out loud. Alone in the kitchen. She was trying to spin it, already painting herself as the victim. I scanned the letter and sent it to my own lawyer with one line. "Respond with everything." Within the hour, he sent a reply attaching a full digital folder, timestamps, receipts, **TS, GPS routes, tagged social content, and a typed breakdown of her public misrepresentations. No commentary, just evidence. And that's when Jenna started cracking. The messages came late at night. First calm. "Can we please just talk?" One conversation. No lawyers. Then pleading. "I don't want this to get uglier than it already is." Then angry. "You always loved being the martyr. You think people are on your side? You're not innocent." Each message was a different version of her. Shifting tones like outfits. Trying on whatever might get me to cave. I didn't respond. She started calling blocked numbers, private lines. I ignored them all. My phone filled with voicemails I never played. Control was slipping. And that's what she feared more than anything, not the divorce, not the exposure. She feared losing the narrative. For years, Jenna had always curated how she was seen. Every post, every interaction, every word chosen like a brushstroke. She built a version of herself that people admired. Perfect wife. Career woman. Balanced. Driven. Stylish. Untouchable. But now? The cracks were showing. And I wasn't lifting a finger. She'd built the house of cards. All I did was open the window. You'd think after everything, after the cabin, the video, the fake smiles, and the silent nights, I'd be numb. But the truth is, numbness never came. What came instead was clarity. Cold, surgical clarity. And that's a dangerous thing in the hands of someone who has nothing left to lose. When Jenna's cease and desist landed in my inbox, it wasn't just a formality. It was a message. Her last-ditch effort to control the story before it spiraled completely out of her hands. The wording was aggressive, calculated, and borderline absurd. "Client has experienced emotional distress as a result of your unauthorized dissemination of legal and personal materials. We demand immediate removal of said materials and a written apology." A written apology. I laughed when I read that. Not bitterly, genuinely. A short, sharp burst of disbelief. I pictured her sitting across from her lawyer, playing the role of the wronged wife. Tears on command. Lines rehearsed. I'd seen that act before. Hell, I'd believed it for years. But now the curtain was down. I forwarded the letter to my attorney without hesitation. His reply was one line. "Let's remind them who holds the receipts." And we did. Our response wasn't hostile. It didn't need to be. It was clinical. Methodical. A zip folder of indisputable proof, each file name a nail in the coffin of her distress narrative. **TS of her Instagram story from Green Hill Pines where she tagged a fake retreat. The cabin rental confirmation tied to her email. A photo from the party in LA with a timestamp that directly contradicted her alibi. A copy of our prenuptial agreement, signed and notarized with the infidelity clause circled in red. A copy of the comment section where she was outed by people who knew exactly who she was and who she wasn't. My lawyer attached a polite but firm note: given the overwhelming documentation, any further accusation of defamation will be viewed as retaliatory and baseless. We will proceed accordingly. The silence that followed wasn't peace, it was calculation. Jenna went quiet for 3 days. No calls. No texts. No lawyer letters. Then the floodgates opened. She messaged me at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. Just a simple line. Can we talk? Please. I didn't respond. She followed up the next morning with a voice memo, her voice shaking like she hadn't slept. Trevor, I know you're angry. I know I hurt you. But this doesn't have to get worse. We can handle this privately. No one else needs to get involved. Please. I deleted the message. Not out of spite. Out of self-preservation. The next one came that night. Is this really what you want? To destroy each other? Because that's where this is going. That was the first time she said each other like I had broken the vows. Like I had snuck off to cabins and lied to someone's face over dinner. Like we were equals in this. I started logging every message. Every email. Every voicemail. I wanted a record not just for legal protection but to remind myself when the doubt crept in of exactly who I was dealing with. By the end of the week, she changed tactics again. Trevor, I don't even know who you are anymore. You used to be kind. You used to be calm. Now you're spiteful and cold. This isn't you. And that was rich coming from the woman who'd lied so smoothly I almost thanked her for it. But here's the thing, I wasn't being cold. I was being precise. Focused. For the first time in years, I had stopped bending over backwards to keep a fantasy alive. I wasn't playing the husband role. I was living in reality. And in reality, I was preparing for war. We moved forward with legal proceedings quickly. My attorney filed the preliminary paperwork and delivered notice to Jenna's lawyer. She was officially being named in violation of the prenuptial clause. Her countersuit, an attempt to claim emotional hardship, was refuted in the initial response as unsupported by credible documentation. In other words, she had nothing. I expected Jenna to rage, to storm into the house or call me crying. Instead, she sent a single envelope in the mail. No note. Just a stack of photos us in happier times. Birthdays. Beach trips. The Thanksgiving we spent in Vermont with her parents. A tiny heart drawn in ink on the back of one picture. Remember this? I stared at them for a long time. Not because I missed her, but because I missed who I thought she was. And that's a hard thing to grieve in illusion. My lawyer called me later that day. She's offering informal mediation, he said. No courtroom. She wants to negotiate terms privately. Probably scared of discovery. Do it, I said. But I want it in writing. No handshakes. No soft deals. You got it. That night, I received an email from Jenna directly. Short. No signature. If you keep pushing this, we both lose. I don't want that. I'm not proud of what I did. But we're both to blame for how we ended up here. Just don't make me your enemy. The irony was that I never intended to make her an enemy. I just wasn't going to let her pretend she was still the victim. The next morning, my lawyer sent her team a formal settlement proposal. It was aggressive, full property rights to me, no claim to shared savings, no alimony. We offered one concession: she could keep her car and whatever was already in her name before the marriage. Jenna's lawyer responded with a predictable counter. But it wasn't just the financial pushback that stood out, it was the tone. They were now implying that if we didn't agree to their terms, Jenna might go public with her own version of the story. That's when I lost any lingering pity I had left. Because now it wasn't about heartbreak. It wasn't even about betrayal. It was about reputation. About image. She was afraid. Afraid that the woman she presented to the world, poised, refined, untouchable, was unraveling. That the mask was cracking. That the people who looked up to her, admired her, envied her, might see the truth. And not the version she'd spun through filtered selfies and curated captions. But the actual truth. Of who she'd become. Of who she'd always been. And me? I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of her. Not of losing. Not even of starting over. I was done negotiating with ghosts. The mediation was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon, neutral ground, quiet office. I showed up with my lawyer and a binder thicker than a Bible. Jenna arrived 10 minutes late, dressed to win, a charcoal pantsuit, sharp heels, hair pinned with surgical precision. Her face gave nothing away. But I knew the cracks were under the surface. She spoke first, her voice calm. I just want what's fair. My lawyer opened the binder and laid out photos, texts, statements, dates, times, GPS logs. She didn't move. But her eyes flickered once, just once, when the LA video was played with the clause beside it.